Good morning, everyone. It is Friday, March 22nd, 2024. My name is Sam Shalhoub, and it's time for your Daily Dispatch Special Edition. Our guest today has 45 years of experience as a science researcher. He's an award-winning documentarian, an author, international and university lecturer, and a former SETI team member. Let's welcome Michael Horn to the Daily Dispatch Special Edition. Welcome, Michael.
Thanks, Sam. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me on. Nice to meet you in person, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. Welcome to the age of technology, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's so true. Well,
Nice.
Mike, let's just dive right in here. So
Okay.
tell me, what led you into this field to begin with?
Well, ever since I was a kid listening to radio shows back in the 1940s and 50s and growing up with the early space TV shows, I had been fascinated by the idea of extraterrestrial life, if you will. I used to have dreams as a kid of discs flying in groups in the sky when I was very young, just seeing these things going across the sky. And this is before we had, the kind of publicity about the overall topic of flying saucers or UFOs or UAPs or whatever you want to call them. And then as the years went on, I always had this fascination, but it was in 1979. Yeah, actually in 79, I walked into a bookstore in Los Angeles, California, and there was a photo book staring me in the face right on the shelf, and it had the clearest photograph of a UFO I'd ever seen. And I had to have that book. I bought the book, and that started the whole, forward propulsion of my, immersion in the topic, and especially in what is called the Billy Meier UFO contacts or Billy Meier case. And this book was the first photo book put out about this. And coincidentally, time-wise, there's a new photo book coming out from the same publisher, and it has the volume 1 and the volume 2, and we're going to be getting and shipping them next week. And it's great because it's really the seminal, the introduction into the world at large about this case and its evidence. That got me going, and then I haven't really stopped since then because everything's been, keep going.
Yeah, especially with what's going on today. My goodness, it's everywhere, Michael. Everybody's talking about it. We're talking about, there's some people that believe that there are, how shall we say, good guys that are reporting on it, and maybe some that are not such good guys. And so everybody's kind of torn as to what the truth is. Well, tell us a little bit about Billy Meier, what that's all about, and who he is and was, and what he did.
Well, Billy Meier is an 87-year-old Swiss man, glad to say alive and well, pardon me, in Switzerland, still, according to him, meeting with the extraterrestrial human beings that he began meeting with voluntarily, wide awake, face to face, when he was 5 years old in 1942 in Switzerland. And to this day, they meet with him and they have their conversations, and as has been the case for decades, these conversations are transcribed and published in German. Then we and other people publish them in English so that the world can keep up, those people that want to know, and will know about this singularly authentic case. There's nothing like this going on, in the world. There's a lot of stuff going on, but this is quite in its own category. So Billy Meier, who is a man who has one arm, one hand, has been bringing forward evidence, physical evidence, since 1958, really, 1964, then the 70s, 80s. His case is historically unprecedented, really.
Wow. Well, what are some of the subjects that he talks about with these extraterrestrials? What are some of the subject matters?
Well, I'm glad you go to that because just for people that don't know, Billy Meier's physical evidence, all of the rather amazing UFO photos and films.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, this is the kind of stuff that is incomparable, independently authenticated, um, not lights in the sky. These are large, real objects. Sometimes he's as close as 15 feet away from them. But there is what I call the higher standard of proof, and that is what you just referred to, the information in the case. And specifically, what I also refer to as the prophetically accurate, and here's the categories in a nutshell, there might be a couple more: scientific, geopolitical, environmental, medical, and economic financial information that Billy Meier has been publishing actually for decades, going back to the 40s when he was a boy. And we have charted over 250 specific error-free examples of this prophetically accurate information covering these topics and others. And when we say scientific, it can deal with archaeology, oh my goodness, anthropology, uh, architectural, just all sorts of things that tend to get discovered officially subsequent to Billy Meier's publishing. The not general kind of, Nostradamus, very symbolic, cryptic. Billy Meier, very specific, right on the money, this type of thing, this event, this trend, very specific, unambiguous. And these have been, many of them have been warnings for us about things that were going to happen if we did not, as human beings, change the direction, the course of our direction in the world for the better.
So these sentient beings, for lack of a better term,
Yeah, human beings.
are are giving him foreknowledge of events that may or may not take place in different realms in our society. Is that correct?
Yes, in a sense. So I'll let you ponder this. The way they divide things, prophecies and predictions, they refer to as basically two separate things. Prophecies are warnings about events that will occur if human beings do not make positive changes away from that course of action. Pardon me.
And Michael, let me interrupt there. Do they? Is this something where they will make suggestions to him as to what should or should not be done?
Well, sometimes, and I think that very often in the way these things are presented about, events we don't want to fulfill, it's implicit in the warning when they say, unless the human beings of Earth change these things, they're not here to tell us what we should do. They're not here to save us, to interfere with us. And some people say, oh, they're interfering because they're warning. I said, well, you know, they're not forcing us to survive. They're not forcing us to act in our own best interest. But if we don't want to, if we don't want to do that, then that's our choice. So there are times when Meyer will say, or they may actually say what a way of dealing with something. I'll give you an example. Right after I define the predictions are things that will happen with certainty because they are mainly cosmic or natural events outside of the direct control or influence of human beings. And there's some where they could be, somebody will say, well, that's a natural event. Why did you say that's a prophecy? Well, we have contributed to that thing coming about. Now our choices are limited. So I'll come back. There is a warning that was published by Billy Meier starting in 1981. And this was so important that along with a couple other specific contacts and contexts of information, I had this illustrated in comic book form, and I have it up on the internet. It was a warning about something that they referred to as the red meteor. They say this is approaching Earth from the depths of space. It's never been in this overall space before. It is heading towards Earth, and there are two dates given. They mention these dates that this will approach Earth, and if it misses hitting the Earth on the first day, which is April 13th, 2029, a mere 5 years away, it will come back April 13th, 2036. And at that time, if it has not been deflected by Earth scientists, it will hit. And they tell us where it'll hit and the type of damage. And Billy says, And he's talking to me. He asks him, well, what's the best way? Should they blow it up? What should they do? What about a solar sail? And they say, no, it needs to be deflected in a specific way. You don't hit it with a rocket or a nuclear charge. What has to happen is that your scientists come together and there's a missile that's launched with a nuclear warhead. It gets detonated in the proper proximity to this object so that the shock wave nudges it just a little bit, enough off course. Because if you get a nudge here and the Earth is way down there, a little nudge sends it way over there. You can't do it if it's too close to the Earth. And you don't want to hit it, because if you hit it with a charge, you're going to then have a shower or rain of hot, chunks of, this so-called red meteor, asteroid, whatever you want to call it, coming down on your planet. So in 2004, 23 years later, NASA discovers it.
Wow.
No, yeah. And it goes on from there. Oh, there's no danger. And they go back and forth. And then they give a size estimate, which corresponds to what Meier was told was the size estimate of it. And basically, they have said this is a potentially devastating event. If it's not nudged, this will come down and hit the Earth between the North Sea and the Black Sea, and it will cut a swath there. The eruptions of volcanoes, the splitting of the Earth, the release of gases, these tsunami, I mean, just all sorts of things, the detonation of nuclear weapons, let alone, power plants. And so they're saying, Earth, humankind has got to come to its senses and come together and cooperate. The Russians took this warning seriously, and they reached out to the Chinese Space Agency, and they said, this needs to be deflected. I don't have any current updates, but this is something that, it sounds very sci-fi to people. All of these things seem so unrelated, but they're approaching and approaching. And the scientists, they think they know everything, and they poo-poo this information, but Billy's been right about everything. I mean, 250 or so specific things covering just everything you can imagine, and current events that are, by definition, happening now. He's forewarned about all these things. So it's a little bit of a rough thing, because people try to kill him instead, literally 25 times.
Wow. The way you described it, Michael, it reminds me of that old movie Armageddon, where they had the meteor approaching Earth and all these different ideas of how to deflect it and so on and so forth,
Sure.
which leads me to the next question. It seems to me like these sentient beings are benevolent. Yet every time we see, well, not every time, but most times in the movies, what is it about? It's about the extraterrestrials coming to eat us or to harm us and I've always had a problem with that train of thought, because if they have the ability to travel galaxies away or wherever through the universe, why would they go out of their way to come and hurt what would be considered an ant to them in terms of abilities? It just doesn't make sense to me logically.
Well, you've hit on, of course, one of the main things. Let me just give you the first answer is we tend to project on the unknown and those who are foreign to us the worst of our own impulses, nature, ambitions, etc. There have been, according to the information in this case, which is a kind of a preface I like to give to things that I can't prove, according to the information in this case, the real history of interaction of extraterrestrial human beings and the Earth per se has gone on for over 20 some million years. It's not that we have a bunch of millions of extraterrestrials hovering around and all this stuff. It's just that we have no real sense of our human history, of our connection to other evolved and lesser evolved beings in the universe, which they say is teeming with life. There are hostile life forms. There are benevolent life forms, but the real evidence is this. This man has been coming forward, since 1940, what is it, 85, 80, whatever, 80 years here. He's been reporting on these contacts. If these beings do exist, and we have enough evidence that somebody other than a one-armed Swiss farmer living in the boonies is taking, so if they exist, and with technology such as you acknowledge, they could have long ago enslaved us, destroyed us, what have you. So the disinformation laden, uh, you know, reports and these different hearings that are, supposedly all stirred up about the alien threat. This is all mainly American military propaganda. It's the worst of our nature being expressed in larger terms. That being said, there are other beings, according to Meier, that are piloting objects that are seen in the skies. These craft that you see here, these people, no longer make their craft visible. We were asked by them through Billy to publish a little proclamation saying those UFOs that you are seeing in your world now and any events that are going to be coming have nothing to do with us. That's not us. We are not interfering. We're not, because there are, according to them, and according to what Billy has said for a long time, other beings, human beings, that have evolved craft that actually have bases underground and whose ancestors were here beginning millennia ago, many millennia ago, and they are the descendants. This gets into very rich information. These beings, these Pleiaren people, they claim that's what they're called, have obviously no intention to harm us, and they've taken decades and decades to publish information that we, if we have the wit and wisdom, would at the very least read, study, look at, and wherever appropriate, implement for our own future survival.
Well, and Michael, that leads into the whole military industrial complex. I mean, there are reasons why we don't. I think they are 50 years ahead of where we think they are.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that there are just oodles of information that we have no idea about. And I think human beings in general, one of the things that frighten us the most is mystery. We don't like mystery. So we will create ideas and stories around things that we don't understand to make ourselves feel better. I think that's part of it.
Exactly. And to scare ourselves. This is an over-adrenalized society and world where unless we're stimulated, scared, hyper excited about things, we don't have a sense of life. We don't have that connection to the natural world that would be very, very beneficial. We are completely out of balance with it. Billy Meier is the first person, and people feel differently about this, but he's the first person on record going back to the 40s and 50s to warn about unnatural man-made climate change, global warming, ozone destruction. Climate change and global warming are natural, but they are part of a cycle that now has been altered 75% by human beings over the last centuries and all. And whether we like it or not, we are now seeing, and we are going to see manifestations of this that are inescapable in terms of their unnatural cyclic nature and order of events. And this is the man that's been warning about this, among other things. So it's actually far less about UFOs and extraterrestrial. In ufology, if you want to call it, there's, people talk about UFOs. They never ask one just essential question. If these contacts are real, what's the reason for them? It's not for people to run around and chase lights in the sky. It's not for government committees. The reason is to help us become aware of the threat to our own very, future survival. And there is underneath all of this, underneath the physical and the informational, there's a teaching, basically, not a belief system, not a religion, not a teaching of how life works. So, because these people are saying, as Meier is, you're not alone in the universe. This isn't the first time that a human race has come to the brink of its own destruction, but there are universal laws, universal recommendations as to the way to live, the way to live so that you navigate, so that you survive, so that you thrive, so that you are not up, on each other's throats. And these people are not coming, they're not going to land, they're not here for contact with everybody. We have the opportunity, even even still, while the things are coming that are now unavoidable, we still have the opportunity to learn how to take this teaching, this information, to improve the quality of our lives and to navigate better.
Well, and you touched on something earlier. You said something about the environmental changes here on Earth. But what happens is we become very myopic and we think, well, something's happening on Earth, but then most people tend not to look at the rest of the solar system and the variations within the temperatures and other planets within our solar system, which is indicative of what could or has taken place here on Earth. I think we become very myopic, and I don't think that's probably the best way to go about it.
I of course agree because we live in a very materialistically oriented society. People, when people find this case, and this is why there was a photo book with, wow, what the heck? We want to see this is the eye candy. We want to see the tech. We want the material stuff, the exciting stuff. They know.
Because
And
it sells things.
it sells things. And in truth, it is connected. Well, Billy once asked about the shape of their craft, and they said, well, we appear in these primarily. We have many different shaped craft, but these have an effect to stimulate a lot of people on an unconscious level because our forefathers long ago were coming and going. Other beings have been here. This shaped craft is kind of in the overall consciousness memories for people, and it will create an interest, and people will be curious and they'll come forward, and then they will start to see the information that you're publishing, this information that we're discussing, and those people who want to know more about life and truth and balance and harmony in the universe and are not just so wrapped up in the techno toys, because your world is going to have plenty of techno toys, they will go farther. And then underneath that, there is the teaching. And that is something that it's non-phenomenalistic. Pardon me, it's got nothing to do with dazzling you with eye candy and all of this stuff. Wonderful as it is, let's find out why we're here. What is life about? And Billy, we produced a film, a buddy of mine and I, we released in 2008, and in there, Meier says something just one of the things he says, the meaning of life is the evolution of consciousness. And that is at the core of the teaching, and so much more about just about anything in life that you could ask about and wonder about. It's like addressed in the same way you pick up any book to study something and to test out the information. We don't have that in our world. We have belief systems where it says what's in this book is true because this book says it's true. That's religion. But you can't bring that into a kindergarten. You can't bring that into a court of law, but you can bring a book in that says, well, this is what the book says. And then you say, well, has that been tested? Yes, it's been tested. Okay, does that work? You do that with electricity. You do it with fixing computers or cars, planting a garden, recipes, anything. You've got to know through trial and error, is this accurate? Is this worth turning the next page? So that's where Meier's books are just, oh my gosh, so important, and far more important than these wonderful photographs.
Well, from a strictly physiological standpoint, it's my belief that the pineal gland is the ability for us to reach either higher or other dimensions. And I think the powers that be, at least here in America, well, probably worldwide, have a directive to calcify that pineal gland, which would keep us from raising to a higher consciousness and allowing these concepts that you and I are talking about for the general dissemination of the public. And I think that
Well,
that's a specific thing that they attack so that we don't have that ability. Would you agree with that?
I think so, but here's an interesting thing. Let's just say that's totally true, and there is truth to, everything, there's degrees. In our world, there's degrees. But let's just say overall that there's accuracy to that many things in the water and the food, the electron that have that effect. Some, and this is, of course, also true that the militaries always try to take any scientific or technological thing to advantage for weapons for harm. And this government, this country, has experimented since its inception practically on the population as well as on other populations. That being said, the beauty of creation, of the reality of life, is that we are inspirited, if you want to use that word, creation energy beings, and that can't stop us. What's the evidence? We're having the conversation, and we're human beings. We've been subjected to this, but that power of that non-physical creation energy, formerly called the spirit in us, it is there for the asking. It brings forward into us things that we shouldn't be able to do based on all of the poisons in this world, everything that has happened and happens, but that power cannot be stopped. That creation, that truth cannot be suppressed or just momentarily here and there cannot be destroyed. It'd be nice if we didn't have to go through all this to get to the truth, though.
Right. Creation cannot be stopped. I agree.
No.
I agree. So there was you had mentioned it earlier, but he has 200 prophecies and predictions. What would be, I know you gave a couple already, but what would be one that most people might have an idea of or some idea about it?
Well, it's,
I know I'm putting you on the spot here, but
no, not at all. The difficulty I always have is to choose certain things out of many, because a lot of things, when we talk about the prophecies and the predictions, a lot of things are just conveyed to him and by him conversationally, where he asks about things. But let me give you a personal example. In 2005, 2006, I was in Switzerland, and I met with Billy, and I was talking with him, and for some reason, I had to ask him, I said, Billy, was the Iraq War fundamentally about oil? I'm expecting the answer is yes, of course it was, right? He says, puts his finger up also in the air, and he says, no, fundamentally, it's about your dollar. And if things go a certain way, you may as well roll cigarettes with your paper money. Now, I have a video up from 2006. Now, he's foretelling the crash of the dollar. It certainly didn't seem like, I didn't get why he was saying it. In 2017, he publishes something about the coming cashless society, the global financial collapse. These things now are knocking on our door. This is marching forward in the same 2017 document. He speaks about NATO and the US are going to launch a war against Russia, and they will be launching also from Germany. Germany has been very prominent now in terms of hosting NATO. There's a bunch of things tied to this, so I'll give it to you. Within 1 year of the publishing of that information, a base was set up in, was it southern or northern Germany? A base was set up, a US and NATO base was established in Germany. You're going, well, that's awful close. In the same document where he's describing coming events with the US and Russia, he talks about, pardon me, Russian attacks on Scandinavia, specifically Norway, Finland, Sweden. Now, as we know, I think, those are countries that were neutral towards Russia. And they're not neutral anymore. They've all joined NATO. In that document, this is now an 87 document, it goes back 30 years, speaks about the Russians are going to move their troops to a place, northern Russia, called Arkhangelsk, in preparation for attacks against Scandinavia. This is now 1987, I'm moving it back. Why would the Russians, what, Archangel? 2011, the Russians move troops to Archangelsk. They set up a military base. They're testing weapons in Archangelsk. I often tell people, I knew a guy, I've known him for over 50 years. I hadn't seen him in that long. This is some years ago. I reconnect. He's a retired physician and physicist now. And when I had initially connected with him, what are you doing, Michael? Well, I'm involved with the bill. Okay, never mind that. But I then got him into a film that we did. I said, listen, we'll leave Billy Meier out of it. Tell me, what are the chances, as far as you're concerned, about other life forms in the universe? Oh, yeah. And he goes on, why human life might be ubiquitous. Okay, so then I call him up in 2011 after I send him the Russian troop movements, and he says, bring your camera over again. I want to talk to you about this. And basically he says, look, this man is not crazy. Uh, I was in the military. I know that area. We flew over it. Under cloud cover year round, brilliant location. If the Russians want to launch an attack against Scandinavia, let alone the US, well, what else does it say in the 1987 document? The Russians will attack the US coming through Alaska and Canada. Oh, that's going to be from the north. But why would they? Well, these things in that document, he warns specifically about computer-controlled weapons, cloned fighting machines, AI, 1987, and concludes the whole thing saying that the danger here, these weapons will turn against humankind.
Wow.
In that document, he also warns about 87, the destruction of the World Trade Center by terrorists. That's just some of it. So,
Wow. Wow.
so this is now if we let me see here. Let me find something here. Yeah. Coming US Civil Wars, 1981 and 1987. In 86, I read the 1981 publishing. I was with a guy, he knew about the Meier case. And I said to him, we were in LA. I said, Randy, what's this guy smoking? What do you mean Civil War is coming to America, right? Who's laughing now? This place is the powder keg. The polarization, the conflict, the schism, any and everything. It only takes one more grain of sand, one more, piece of straw on the scale. These things are in motion already. We are in that. 1986 and 7, Billy Meier says, in the future, the United States of America will have two coming terrible civil wars. And it can't be helped, but that the country will divide up into 4 or 5 territories, many under sectarian dictatorial rule. Now, with not wanting to point fingers at anybody, but it's pretty clear right now that the main, let's say, sectarian influences are going to be the far right. It's, yes, there are people here that are Muslims and Jews and this and that, but in politics right now, there's a great polarization, Christian far right and all of that. And some of these people are openly speaking about secession, religious government, religiously oriented governments and stuff. So people can, take it for what we will. Why and how does a man predict that all of, these decades ago? He also, in terms of, we speak about environmental events. 1948, his first alleged extraterrestrial teacher says between 2015, 2017, 2016, there are going to be powerful earthquakes in central Italy. They will be the precursors to the eruption of 5 major volcanoes in Italy. Now I got to remember Mount Etna, Stromboli, Vesuvius, Campi Flegrei, and there's always one more. I always forget it. Anyway, Etna, Vesuvius, Stromboli, Campi Flegrei, and somebody else knows the fifth one. I always remember it. Talk about it. And he also says in northern Germany, the Eiffel Fields, that's a caldera, just like Campi Flegrei. Did I get Stromboli? Maybe Stromboli was it. Anyway, that's those are calderas. Parts of Italy are going to end up in the seas. And I'm going, oh, 1948. What's he talking about? So I go online and I put in earthquakes, Central Italy, 2016. The most powerful earthquakes on record took place in Central Italy in 2016. Subsequent, all five of those volcanoes now are showing activity. Some have been active more in the past. Some have just come into activity. I mean, what do we need to hit ourselves over the head with to get it? You know, we are.
Well, I think the geopolitical landscape has a lot to do with this, as you said. I can remember 10, 12 years ago when the US dollar was being threatened. There were other countries that were taken out, such as Libya, Egypt, and so forth. You know, countries that we had given foreign aid to for decades. And then in a very short period of time, all of a sudden they were bad guys and they had to go
Yeah,
because the dollar was being questioned. I agree with that 100%. And you know, Michael, it's really interesting. I know we have a limited amount of time, and I just want to. This type of information can be scary for a lot of people, and I know that myself, there are certain personal practices that I have, including meditation and other things. As we wind up here, Mike, you had said that there was something called a peace meditation, and I would like you to talk a little bit about that to the audience because in these times, with all that's going on, I think we need to be as centered as possible and as calm as possible. So, as we finish here, would you talk a little bit about that and where people can find it?
sure. You know, we have in our world something called, the peace symbol. And the fact of the matter, according to this information, and Meier's not the only one that's pointed this out, the peace symbol is actually a rune, R-U-N-E. It's a symbol for war and death. So beginning back in the 50s, 60s, when people are marching around and still show that sign, it's a death symbol.
Wow.
Well, but there is a real peace symbol. There is a symbol, and it looks like this. This is what's called the Salome peace symbol. It's an ancient, ancient symbol. It's one of literally millions of symbols that Meier has, well, he knows these symbols, each one of them. And there's levels of symbols that when he meets with these people, it's a little off topic here, but when he meets with them, the conversations have been recorded with very sophisticated equipment and telepathically are later sent back to him in symbols that he translates into German simultaneously with one hand typing out at about up to 100 words per minute in German. That's
Wow.
and then they're translated into other languages. But this symbol is showing the tree of life, upward energy, not this downward peace symbol. When people going back, people flash each other what? The peace symbol, the peace symbol. There it is, right? Peace symbol. Okay, so there is a meditation based around the entire context of this symbol, what it represents, and it's called the Salome Peace Meditation. We have information, on our website and everything about it. It's done on 2 weekends every month. It's done on Saturday and Sunday, so there's one, two, three, maybe 8 times a month or whatever. And well, actually, it's done more on Saturdays. It's done twice, and Sundays once. So people get together, or they do it individually themselves. And there's like a mantra in an ancient language, Lyran language, if you will. Take it for what it's worth, folks. But the mantra is Salome Gamnan Benurda Ganiber Asala Hesperona. Something like peace on earth and to all beings. Now it's said that there's over 3.2 billion extraterrestrial human beings who, on behalf of the earth, get together at the same time in their realm, if you will, and sit down and do that meditation to send and hold that positive and peaceful energy for the earth. There's now maybe 35, 40,000 people on Earth do this. They have said this is the most important thing you can do. And an individual can sit and do it too. And there's more information about how, yes, you can do it at other times and how that would work. But they said this is energetically and scientifically frequencies that help to dispel some of the shroud of ever contributed to negativity that we create for ourselves and bathe ourselves in on a daily basis. We want to offset that. And the meditation, Meier's got a book on the meditation and the dimensions of that in different meditations and what it is and what it means and how you can do that. And you can do it 24/7 while you're doing other things. It's like those are the keys to our future survival. That's why the teaching is based on these things. And in there as well, what is reincarnation? Do people live again? What's the soul or the spirit? Things, what are ghosts? What are these phenomena that are all mystical? They're not mystical. There are things that are real. There are things that are not. There are things that are ephemeral. But this is a teaching, the extent and breadth of which and depth of which, frankly, it's unparalleled. And existential questions that most people don't bother any longer to look at, but the thoughtful ones would want to know. And people can come and, peruse things, and we've got tons of free information.
Well,
Teaching.
and Michael, that's just it. What a wonderful way to finish this off with the hope and peace of humanity and beings everywhere. I mean, I think that's what is important: peace and harmony in our lives. And so, tell me, Michael, where can people find your information? How can they see what it is that you've been talking about?
Sure. I have a blog, very 2,000 plus articles, information, evidence, all sorts of stuff, links to this information on the teaching. So it's called theyflyblog.com, and contact information there. We have monthly online meetings that are held. I'm not the one that holds them. I participate, other people participate around the world, actually, online. Why not? Certain Saturdays every month, one Saturday of the month. There's ways that people any and everywhere can connect with each other, not looking for saviors and gurus, but how do we do this? Let's discuss this. And it covers so many facets. And I'm grateful, Sam. Thank you, because it's far more important. This is the message. We get the eye candy, we get the prophecies and predictions. Billy Meier is a time traveler, literally. These people are, we've proved it to scientific and legal standards. These people, they time travel. That's how they can tell you these events and where and how and with specificity and make no mistakes. There's that, and then there's, we have free will. What are we going to do with it? But this is what they've all come to bring us. Now that we have your attention, folks, would you be willing, for your own sake and the sake of family, your world, to open up and find out why you're here and how you can make this a paradise, peace, love, freedom, harmony, and all that.
Wonderful, Michael. Gosh, what a wonderful way to wrap this up. I will put the links below the videos on all the platforms so that people can easily find you. And Michael, I just can't thank you enough for coming on. What a blessing it has been. I am so looking forward to. I hope that you'll come on the show again in the near future.
Sure. If you'll have me, I'll be here. If you build it, they will come and all that. But I'm grateful to you, and so will the people who will have access also through. You'll send me a link. I'll post the video and all, because people are looking. We're not a cultic, cliquish. We want to connect with people, and we want them to have the opportunity. So thank you for the opportunity, and let's do it again, indeed.
My pleasure, Michael. Wonderful. We will talk again soon. Have a wonderful weekend. Thank you so much.
Sam, thank you.